In the previous video, we took a look at some of the defaults if somebody takes a console cable and plugs into the console port here on your router. Now, what I'd like to do next in this video is take a look at what happens if somebody plugs into the auxiliary port on the router. What can they expect as the defaults, and what is that port even for? We're going to take a look at that and more right now. And we're going to continue to use Packet Tracer for this conversation, so let's bring up another PC that can connect over to this router's auxiliary port. So we'll click on the end devices down here. Let's grab a laptop for some visual differences. Then we'll click on the connection icon right here. We'll click on the console cable here and go from the laptop from its RS-232 port and its serial port over to the router. And this time we're going to go to the auxiliary port. So that's line auxiliary 0. Now the biggest difference, let's go ahead and take a look at this router real quick, and I'm going to zoom in and scroll over on the right. The biggest difference between this port, the console, and the auxiliary port right above it is that the console port is active while the router is booting up. So if a person was going to do password recovery, or they needed to interrupt the normal boot or see the output while that device was booting, they definitely want to be on the console port. But once the router is up and running, a user connected to the auxiliary port who's gone into privileged mode is going to have the same rights and abilities as somebody connected on the console port. So one of the uses for the auxiliary port would be if somebody had a modem and they wanted a backup method of connecting over to this router. So if their primary path and their primary connectivity through the console port wasn't an option, they could use this modem and dial up and connect to the auxiliary port for some access to that box. So that's how that port could also be used. So when we connect to these ports, we're going to use our terminal emulation program, and we're going to specify the speed, the serial speed, regarding how fast the bits are going to fly as we communicate with these ports. And if we ever connect to one of these ports and we get gobbledygook coming out of it, we might want to revisit what the defaults or what the settings are for these ports and make sure that our terminal emulator is matching those speeds, because we want to be talking the same rate or the same speed as the system is expecting us to on those ports. All right, so let's take a look at some of the defaults. So we'll go to this laptop here. On the laptop, we'll drag that down a little bit so we can see everything. And let me scroll this over to the left here as well. And here on the laptop, we'll click on Desktop, this tab right here, and then we'll go to Terminal. It's confirming our speed. All these defaults are going to work great. And we'll click on OK. And check this out. When we press Enter, we are now connected to the auxiliary port of this router. Now, one question is, hey Keith, how do we confirm? Like, we're working on so much gear these days that's not physically next to us. It may be up in the cloud or in a data center. How do we know exactly where we're connected? We can use the command show users and press Enter. And even though we don't have authenticated users, it's going to show us with this asterisk right here on the left where we are connected. So this confirms for us, because of this asterisk right here, that we are connected via line aux 0, where if we are connected on the console port, this would reflect console 0. I'd also love you to notice this. Check this out. When we connect on the auxiliary port, it automatically put us into user mode. So this is privilege level 1. And we can verify that using the command we did in the last video, which is show privilege, and press Enter. Now here's a significant difference between the auxiliary port and the console port from the previous video. And that is this. If we type enable and press Enter, if we do not have an enable secret or enable password set, here is as far as we go as far as privileges. So on the console port, they make an exception and they allow you to go into privilege mode even though there's no password set. Where here on the auxiliary port, unless there's an enable secret or enable password set, we're not getting any further. So let's set a password to get to privilege level 15. And to do that, we can either go to this router in Packet Tracer directly, or we can go back to the console, which PC0 is currently connected to. So let's go back to the console. In fact, I'll drag this a little bit to the left, and I'll put the auxiliary connection a little bit over to the right here. Great. And my console session timed out, so I'll put the console password in, which is CONSOLEPW. Press Enter. Fantastic. Then I'll type in enable. Great. And because I'm on the console, it lets me go in. If we do a show users, just to verify, sure enough, I'm sitting at the console, and there's somebody else connected currently on line auxiliary 0, and that's over here on the right. That's the laptop. So let's set an enable secret. So we'll go into configuration mode, and in router configuration mode, we'll do enable space secret, and then we'll put in a secret of, and let's call this secret PW and press Enter. Now also, it's unfortunate, but there's another command called enable space password. And this is going back a long, long time. But if the enable password is set and there's no enable secret set, to get to privilege level 15 mode, the enable password will work. So if we do enable password, I'm going to call this bad idea. And let me show you why. If we do a do show run, check this out. The enable secret is encrypted and hidden. where the enable password is just in plain text. And that's why, unless there's a compelling reason to use the quote-unquote enable password as opposed to the enable secret, we shouldn't use it. So I'm going to go ahead and do a no enable password to get rid of it. Hit the up arrow a couple times, do a show run again, just to make sure it's gone. Let's go over here to the right, which is our auxiliary access, type enable, and now we can type in our password of secretpw, press enter, and now we're in privilege mode over here via the auxiliary port. So at this point, with the console being at level 15 and the auxiliary port being at level 15, either one of these windows and users would have the same privileges and abilities as the other. And one other thing while we're talking about passwords, if we did enable secret and we use context sensitive help and did a question mark, we have the options of putting in the encrypted password. So we could actually, if somebody gave us this string, which is hard to know as a user, like what does that real password mean? We don't know. It's encrypted. But we could take that whole string, copy it, and paste it in and press enter. And that's one way of setting the enable secret without having to type the literal password that's going to be used for that enable secret. If we have this string already in place, we can go ahead and copy paste it. And I'm adding this part right here in post edit because, oh my gosh, I am in for a world of hurt. What I just did was I did enable secret, and then instead of putting in the number 5 and then the actual code, I put enable secret space and I copied pasted again the enable secret 5. So my enable, I didn't mean to do it, but the enable secret that I just set just a few moments ago is the enable secret that includes enable space secret as part of the secret, along with the 5 and the hash. So I'm going to troubleshoot that live in the next video, so stay tuned for that. I just wanted to give you a heads up, an inside scoop that that was coming in the next video. So with that said, let's go back to this video. All right, so now if we did a show run, and I'll hit the spacebar a few times to go to the bottom, you'll notice on line auxiliary 0, we still don't have any password for initial access. So what we can do is the same kind of treatment we did for line console 0. We can specify the keyword login in line configuration mode for auxiliary 0, and we can specify the password that we want to use. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll go into configuration mode, line AUX 0. Now in line configuration mode, we can use the command password to specify the password we want to use. Let's call this AUXPW, and I'm going to write that down so I can log in later. Enter, and to make it effective, meaning to require a login, we're going to use the keyword login, because otherwise it's implied no login is required. If we type in end, and then do a show run, and hit the spacebar a few times. Now for line auxiliary 0, we're requiring a password with the keyword login, and we specify what the password is, and we should test it. So over this window on the right, we'll go ahead and we'll type in exit, press enter, and we'll put in AUXPW for the password. And now from the laptop, we have access through the auxiliary port again. If we do a show users, that can confirm it for us. Again, it's that asterisk on the left-hand side that lets us know from this window which connection we're using to the router. So in this video, we focused on the auxiliary port, line AUX0. Now by default, there's no password required, no login required to connect to it. If you connect to it, you get put at user level 1, privilege level 1. However, if you want to go to privilege level 15, there needs to be an enable secret set that allows you to put in that password and get there. Secondly, we identified that we can apply a password to that line AUX0 port, and we can require login by using the commands password, the password we want to use, and then the keyword login to force a login when people connect to that port. So thanks for joining me in this nugget. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.